Every so often in a man's life on his journey to $1 million a month, his funnel starts to fuck him, and he's got to put attention on it and aggressively improve its performance. AKA, you've got to deploy some CRO tactics onto that bad boy, open up a bottleneck and improve the quantity of people flowing from start to finish. In this specific video, we're going to go through some of the top lessons that we deploy when we go look at a call funnel specifically, what tests we like to run first, how to analyze the call funnel's performance, and how that data could potentially lead to one test over another being prioritized, and all kinds of lessons that fit that same general genre of lessonry. Okay, so welcome into the video. If you're new here, all we talk about hitting $1 million months. We pass down the lessons of people who have been there, done that, all the clients that we've helped over the years, and we pass down those lessons to you right here on YouTube to put you on game. We don't make any income claims though. 0.1% of people, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, ever have the opportunity to hit $10 million a year, let alone the even smaller, tinier fraction of people that get to 12 million a year plus, aka the big $1 million a month earners. So again, no income claims, no earning potential here, just lessons. And of course, if you're already a subscriber, welcome back. Absolute pleasure to have you here. Another banger. Without further ado, let's dive in. So first of all, hopefully to identify that your funnel is what's fucking you, you have done what we call a bottleneck analysis, which we've talked about more at length inside of other videos on this channel. So I won't sit here and bore you with those details. You can go watch those in one of those other videos. But just to summarize it briefly, it's pretty simple. Generally, when you do a bottleneck analysis, you're trying to go step by step and see what is contracted and easiest to double or potentially easiest to reduce in half, give or take what's specifically contextual to that stat. So as an example, if my CPMs are sky high, like we had a guy just the other day, an inner circle member, his CPMs were in the 300 to 400s, right? His click-through rate, his unique outbound link click-through rate was arguably pretty good. It was in the 2 to 3s. We generally like to say 2% is good. This guy was in the 2 to 3s. His on-page conversion rates, whether it was like the play rate on his video, the engagement rate on his video, his application completion rate, quantity of people between applications and call bookings that would book a call, his cost per call, arguably those statistics were all pretty good. But the CPMs were through the fucking roof. So in that example, that would be well, that seems easiest to reduce in half type bottleneck. And we were able to actually reduce it far more in half. We encouraged him to, he was an advertiser since like 2012. We encouraged him to go into a new business manager, new ad account, new page, same pixel, see if that would reduce the CPMs. And like magic, it brought it down to $21 for the CPMs. Anyway, you'd think that they'd want to reward you for being an advertiser for that long, but I guess not. Maybe it's like programmatically, like literally coded in that if you're an advertiser for a long duration of time, you know, every year CPMs go up. Maybe that's like actually coded in. That might have been the one lesson I learned from that. But regardless, until we see it a few more times, I won't be conclusive about it. Anyway, let's use the example again on the advertising side. You have good CPMs, but your link click-through rate is shot. Let's say you have like a 0.5% unique outbound link click-through rate. Garbage can for sure be doubled easily to 1% as a result of doing that. That'd cut your cost per call in half, that'd double the volume, that'd double the revenue as a result, assuming all the other statistics stayed the same. Be a great optimization tactic to improve your ads in that example. In other instances, you have great CPMs, you have a great unique outbound link click-through rate, and then you start looking at the page statistics. Assuming you're selling to rich people and not doing an opt-in, or if you aren't selling to rich people and you are doing an opt-in, that would obviously be the first place to look on the page in terms of a choke point, right? That's what a bottleneck is. Just like a literal bottle where it chokes at the top and a constrained amount flows through it as a result of that choke. That's what happens with these data points across the bottleneck analysis. So if we don't have an opt-in, one of the very first things that we would want to look at, you might start thinking like, oh, should I look at the play rate on the VSL? Should I look at the engagement rate on the VSL? But generally what you want to look at, depending on how your page is set up, is how people are interacting with the application itself. So a lot of the VSL related statistics, even some of the analytics that we can get from tools that are just like behind the scenes, like Google Analytics or Hotjar, like tools like that, we have an opportunity to judge the page's performance solely based on like the quantity of people that are starting the application against the total quantity of people that hit the page. That's generally what I like to look for first. One thing that I want to point out and make really clear, when I run any type of call funnel, I typically embed the application straight onto the page. I prefer very simple application funnels comparatively to more complex ones. So I'll embed the actual application straight onto the page. Generally, for all those who are already familiar with this channel, I defer to Typeform due to the fact that it currently integrates with Calendly. I have finally started to see some other tools that are comparable to Typeform and Calendly, and absolutely the fuck not, it's not go high level, okay? As much as your wet dream would be that it is. I'm not gonna endorse that other tool now. I just wanna be clear, I'm still seeing a handful of new Inner Circle members that are trying it out and seeing their results with it, and then I wanna see how their data stacks up against the data of Typeform and Calendly's before I openly endorse it. But back to the point. The reason I like Typeform and Calendly specifically is because it integrates together, meaning literally in the application itself, without sending somebody to a separate scheduler page, the actual scheduler can be embedded into the application, which typically reduces the drop off from about 50% when you have them separated on different pages. And when they're integrated, you typically see about a 15, maybe upwards of a 20% drop off rate. So that improves your cost per call substantially. If you separate the Calendly or whatever scheduler and application tool you're using specifically, you're gonna have a bad time because your cost per call is artificially inflated due to that 50% drop. So that'd be another example of a great bottleneck that you could potentially solve. Assuming that your page is a headline, a video, and an application, where the application is actually embedded onto the page, this is where I typically start. So another big reason I like Typeform is for the analytics. So when I actually go look, I can see a bunch of data. So first of all, I can see the actual page traffic. I'm looking for the total unique page traffic in a specific date range. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to divide that against the total people that started the application. Okay, so let me start with this just to be extremely clear. I generally like to see on average, and this might seem pretty low, but still this gets a really favorable cost per call. It gets a really favorable ROAS. I've seen a majority of the people who hit $1 million months with call funnels in the same type of range. Somewhere between like 3 and 5% is generally the average people who hit the page and end up booking a call. So if I take that 3 to 5% average against my total page traffic, and I just look at what my total quantity of booked calls is against my total page traffic, and I see that it's far below 3 to 5%, right away that'd be an example of a huge bottleneck, which would make me immediately start putting attention to the page. Some of the other triggers that would also make me pay more attention to the page and like start deploying CRO actions are that I might be within that range for like the quantity of people that fill out applications, but I'm well below that for the quantity of people that book calls. So again, can't stress it enough. Ideally, we're in a 3 to 5% total qualified, and this is qualified by the way, qualified booked calls against the total page traffic. So anyway, once I find out whether I'm below that range, in that range, potentially above that range, that's really gonna determine what I do from there. So total people that started the application taken against divided by the total quantity of people that hit the page, that's gonna be very indicative as well as to whether we potentially have an issue. So let's use the example that the total quantity of people that start the application itself is really low and it seems very easy to double. And this is, I don't really wanna like project a statistic onto you on this video because there's such a wide range of like people who sell high ticket products and services trying to tap $1 million months or hit their next $1 million a month on top of what they already do. That it, I don't know, it just kind of feels unethical to a degree or like irresponsible to tell you some random statistic for that. 3 to 5%, that's a statistic that's tried and true across damn near every high ticket product and service funnel. But for some reason, the quantity of people, like let me give you a specific example. If you sell to blue collar demographics as an example, right? The quantity of people that like will press play on your video is super fucking low. You know, the quantity of people that'll watch the video, the quantity of people that'll start the application, it's all really, really low. And so therefore like the cost of an expected call booking through a blue collar call funnel is arguably a lot higher as a general expectation. Comparatively, it's like if you have a super hot offer in a specific niche right now, like let's say you're selling something in AI or sales or real estate or something again that's just always jumping and there's a huge industry for it and it's top of mind for people, you're naturally gonna have a far higher quantity of every single statistic that's on this page. So due to the fact that there's like not necessarily a specific range, I just don't wanna project a statistic onto you for this. But I do wanna be clear, when you're doing a bottleneck analysis, the intention and like the view that you're trying to look through is, does it seem easy to double? Or does it seem easy to reduce in half? That's really what you want to be looking for. So if I see that my total quantity of people that hit the page versus the total quantity of people that actually start the application, not complete it, just start it, is really low and it seems really easy to double, that's honestly good news to a degree. Because if you're currently struggling, you want to get your ROAS up, you want to get a fuckload more people with like a quick hit strategy. Honestly, like when you're doing a bottleneck analysis and you see a handful, not even just one, but like a handful of things where you're like, I could definitely double that. I could definitely get a fuckload more revenue off of doubling that. It's like, that's good, because that's leverage, right? It's honestly kind of demoralizing if you go to improve your statistics, right? And you want to get your ROAS up, you want to get your money up, and you don't see any specific opportunities to be able to realistically double it. Like let's say you're running a webinar funnel with an opt-in page and you already have a 50% opt-in rate and like your show rate is 50% to the webinar. webinar, and your retention rate during the webinar is 90%, and the total quantity of people booking calls is like 50%, and your show rate to those calls is like 80%. You know, it's like, as an example, right? It's like those statistics are all really good. I'd feel super low morale if I was trying to get my ROAS up and I didn't see any like high leverage things within my process. Here's the crazy thing about applications in general. There's a lot of shit that you can typically do. So let me list a few of them off. First one, people who start the app. Obviously, question by question drop off. So when you look at each individual question, that also poses an opportunity to be a bottleneck. As an example, and typically when you look at Typeform specifically, like you'll see question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and next to it, you'll see these little percentages where it'll say something like -12% and -30% and like -4%. And like generally there's a few that are outliers here where there's just like a tremendous quantity of people that drop off at a specific step in the process. In that particular case, those would obviously act as your potential bottlenecks where you'd have a lot of opportunity to like change the wording of those questions. I'll give you a good example of the client the other day. They had an 18 question application, right? Fucking insane. 18 question application, right? And their current cost per call was sitting in like the 700s. They have a direct competitor that their cost per call sits in the hundreds to like 300s. I wouldn't say necessarily direct competitor. I kind of take that back. They're very similar though. Okay, now to be clear, due to the fact that there's such a wide discrepancy between the similar competitor business and the business in this case that has 18 fucking application questions, well, you go look at the specific business that's in the 100 to 300s, and they had a total of like 7 app questions, right? And so this, again, acts as a huge choke point, acts as a big bottleneck, it acts as an opportunity to definitely improve. Outside of the question by question drop off, you obviously have some other statistics you can look at on the page itself. So you have VSL play rate. Let me be clear when I say this one. I've seen $1 million a month earners that have had single digit or in the teens play rates, which means the total quantity of people that hit the page and actually press play on the VSL. It's important to understand this distinction real quick so you get this. If you're targeting an in-market demographic, if your ads are really good and you've done phenomenal at driving traffic to the page, who's well framed, your messaging was dialed in, you did a really good job articulating the problem solution scenario or the desire-based scenario, you're gonna have a good time. People are gonna hit the page, they're already going to be charged to take the action. The only people that are going to, in that case, necessarily watch the VSL are going to be people who just have a handful more questions or maybe have a lower interest level and therefore want to get those additional questions answered or get that additional data in order to inspire action or determine whether it's for them or not. At that point, they'll leave if it's not. Most of the people who have low play rates but still have phenomenal cost per calls, their ads just do such a phenomenal job at doing a lot of the selling and the pre-framing, and messaging is dialed in to get very high interest in market demographics to hit the page and just take the action. So this always frustrates me personally when I see people default to,
hey, do you think it's a good idea, Jeremy, to withhold the application for a couple minutes?
I want to be very fair in saying like there's definitely use cases where that can make sense. Okay, but in most instances, I am in a majority by far of instances not going to do that. I'm going to, in a majority of instances, say that that's a terrible idea. But I want to be fair in saying, like we have a guy in the inner circle, he does $2.5 million a month. He has a timing-based application where it doesn't show up, I think, for a handful of minutes. So again, I've seen it work. I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, it's the devil and it's never going to work. But yeah, a majority of the time, it doesn't make any sense to do. Because in that case, when you have good qualified people that are inspired to take an action that then go and hit your page and there's no action for them to take, like they're just going to leave, you see? And you don't get the opportunity to see like the strength of those leads. What typically determines whether you should put a timing-based application on the page or not, where it doesn't show up until a certain amount of minutes pass by, is whether you get a lot of people that apply without watching that still show up with high intent and high levels of interest. If you get a bunch of donkeys and turkeys that show up on your sales calls and you realize like, okay, I'm getting a lot of people who aren't pressing play on the video and I'm still getting a bunch of turds through the process, that'd be a good time to start considering like what you could do to ensure a higher quantity of people watch the videos. That could also be a good potential symptom that would put your attention on the ads themselves for being conclusive about what you need to go and actually do on the ads rather than the page. So anyway, I digress. VSL play rate, typically on average, you're gonna see somewhere between like as low as 25%, as high as upwards of 60%. Very rarely do we see a much higher percentage than that. It is possible, and we have seen it to be clear, but again, more rare, minority by far. Outside of that, and this is also very important you understand this, the engagement rate. So engagement rate represents the quantity of people that press press play on the video and how long they stay and watch. So out of 100% that they could consume, how much did they consume on average is what the engagement rate represents. We've seen really high play rates. Like we've had a guy just recently, this is actually a crazy set of statistics to me, one of the first, he had a 90+% play rate. I don't remember the exact statistic, I'm not gonna make it up, I know it was in the 90s. So that means 90% of people hit the page and press play. They really wanted to hear what the guy said. This guy was a sales trainer. He had a 7% engagement rate. That's doo-doo. That means that everybody was really excited about what he talked about, so likely his ads were really good. There was a very high level of interest and intent when driving to the page, and then as soon as everybody hit the video, he did something audaciously wrong inside of the video to have that low of an engagement rate. That means people just said, get fucked, I'm leaving, they were out. That was indicative that his VSL sucks. That'd be a great example of a bottleneck to improve. Typically for VSLs, I prefer to host them in Wistia. I believe that the other tool that we've seen a lot of people use recently has been Vitalytics, if I'm not mistaken. And I prefer Wistia. They generally have very similar like back-end statistics though. So again, shout out to Vitalytics if that's your preference. What Wistia will allow you to do is it shows a video. So like this will be your VSL itself. And when you click on it and you look at the analytics specifically and you press the engagement rate, it'll show you like a bar graph, like a retention graph. And generally like a good VSL retention graph looks like that, like a gradual decline. A lot of them on average will look more like this, where they'll have a substantial decline at the beginning. And this becomes a huge area of opportunity to improve things. So if you see a substantial drop in your video analytics for the VSL, that could be indicative that you need to put some attention onto the video itself and try to drive some improvement there. And you don't have to chop like everything in the video. Like you don't have to necessarily change all this where the retention curve is relatively stable. The main area that you would obviously want to fix is this area here where the tremendous drop off occurs. Also very important to note, typically the shorter a VSL, the stronger the retention chart's gonna be. The longer the VSL, the more you're gonna get like substantial and random drop offs throughout the video. The good news is that when it is longer, and by longer, I wanna be clear what I say, it's like shorter means like maybe 2 minutes to 5 minutes, longer means upwards of like 10+ minutes. There's a substantial difference in that quantity, especially when you're driving cold traffic to it. These people have no idea who the fuck you are. It's super selfish to have like an extremely long and drawn out VSL. It's also super selfish and silly, by the way, to ask that dumbass question in the application where you're like,
hey, did you watch the full video before you show up to this call?
That demonstrates super clearly that you have no fucking clue how to do anything with back-end selling systems. I have entire videos dedicated on my page to all 4 of the current back-end selling system strategies like confirmation page video best practices with breakout videos, value dense email sequences, the hammer them remarketing strategy, and then all the best practices that your salespeople should be doing. Of course, we withhold a good and fair bit of information on this channel. We still put you on game. We put you on enough game to be able to go out there, get a result, make some house money, to come back and check those links down in the description to purchase from us, whether it be the Inner Circle program, which is for when you're rich and trying to get a fuckload richer. That's where we do our one-on-one calls, weekly group calls, quarterly masterminds in person in good old Miami, Florida here at the P House currently. We also have AI Jeremy with unlimited access inside of that program. You get a massive course vault that you immediately unlock when you join into that program. And we have a very active group chat full of all the rich people that are very open and very well spoken and attempting to help one another and get help when necessary. We also have the Master Internet Marketing program that you can check out down in the description. That's a 7-week live class. The next live class is coming up in late summer. We also do typically an annual or sometimes every other year, depending on how much changes in marketing, new iteration of the class. So this upcoming one will be the 5th cohort. As soon as you join in though, you get immediate access to all the past cohorts, the most recent cohort of which would be the best one to watch, of course. So anyway, point being, we withhold a pretty fair bit of information on our channel, but there's still more than enough for you to be able to go learn. And if you're the right demographic, which is smart, rich, and trying to get a fuckload richer, you'll have a pretty easy time being able to piece these things together. And then the intent of you buying one of our paid programs, which again, links for down in the description, is that's where you're gonna get the examples, the accountability, the additional insights, the SOPs, the video courses that talk about these things at length with tremendously greater detail than what we do here on YouTube. So if you like those videos, compare all the additional value you're gonna get out of the paid programs. Anyway, back to this. So when you look at the VSLs specifically, and you consider like a shorter VSL versus a longer VSL, very important to consider that yes, like although your VSL play rate might be low, and yes, your engagement rate might be low, if you're still getting a great cost per call, instead of having to optimize the front end of your call funnel, you might actually want to optimize the back end of your call funnel is the point I'm attempting to make. So you might want to focus on things like breakout videos, the hammer them strategy, value dense email sequences, getting your salespeople to do a little bit of manual follow-up, up with personalized custom follow-up to help get the person the information that they need. Information leads to action. Information, to be fair, the wrong information can also lead to inaction. But a guaranteed way to have a very low show rate, unless you have a smoking hot offer, is to have no information at all on the back end until that call occurs. That's where you dramatically stack your odds of a bunch of fucked up statistics after the actual call gets scheduled, in between that and the call time itself. So on this specific lesson that I'm talking about here today, I won't digress too much into the back-end selling systems. Again, I have entire videos on this channel dedicated just to those topics. You can go check them out after this. The front end of the funnel itself, when you're looking at optimizing that, that's where a lot of these specific things that we just spoke about matter a lot. Question by question drop off, the total quantity of people that are dropping off in between the application and the scheduler. And I guarantee you this, and I already mentioned it a little earlier, but I'll say it again. If you have a separate application and scheduler step, okay, which means that you have your first page that has your VSL on it, okay, and then you have your application down here, and then after people apply, you take them to a step that has the scheduler on it. That right there, every time, has about a 50% drop on average. So you might still get a bunch of qualified applicants, but you're gonna have a big drop. Now here's the thing that most people don't do, and this is really important you understand this. You have to actually do the math on whether you are making money from people who apply and do not schedule. This is what's really important to understand. Because I get this argument a lot from people who have like silly things, like opt-ins on their funnels for calls as an example, where they're like,
oh, well, Jeremy, I still capture their information. I'm building my list.
and I'm like, all right, yeah? Well, how about, when's the last time you've done the math? How many people opt in who never schedule, end up buying? Show me those numbers. And they never fucking do the numbers. They never do the math, literally ever. And when they finally do the math, they realize they have been artificially jacking up their cost per call through the fucking roof because they've gaslit themselves into thinking that this opt-in was making them any fucking money at all. So listen, I don't give a fuck about Typeform and Calendly. I have no inherent bias towards these two platforms besides the fact they've gotten me the best cost per call that I've seen comparatively to any other fucking tech stack that I've tested against. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I've currently seen one new tech stack that has the integration of the application and the scheduler itself, which has obviously rivaled the cost per call of Typeform and Calendly. I do not want to be right. I just want to make money, okay? And I want to get the most ROAS that I can. I don't give a fuck about Typeform and Calendly. In this particular instance, where I have a separate application and a separate scheduler, I would look at that and I would be like, wow, my cost per call is double what it should be because I am biased towards a specific tech stack. That is where you need to practice detachment, my friend. It's a couple $100 a month in software costs. Like we're sitting here talking about hitting $1 million a month or adding the next $1 million a month. Who gives a fuck if everything's got to be in HubSpot because you pay for HubSpot, or if everything's got to be in Go High Level just because it's got the feature? Who gives a fuck? Use the softwares that get you the better cost per result. So many times, like you look for other answers in some of these other, to be fair, potential bottlenecked areas, but in reality, like the greatest and easiest possible to solve bottleneck you got is you have a fucking attachment to whatever software stack you currently use, and it's fucking you. So again, practice the art of detachment, my friend. Maybe read some Buddhist books or pop over to a Buddhist channel or something. I don't know what to tell you. But here's the thing that I do know. When I combine those steps, I see on average about a 16 to 20% drop. And the point I'm trying to make, by the way, with the do the math on the opt-in step is you got to do the math on the application step too. Like if you get people who are qualified that apply and don't book, and you did the math on those people who bought versus the people who bought who scheduled a call, right? Most sales organizations, they are inherently biased towards the people who scheduled calls. And the sales teams develop this worldview that everybody who doesn't schedule a call is a dog shit, low quality lead, okay? And your sales organization is likely victim to that. Trust me, I've heard it. Thousands of people I've helped that have paid me to help them, okay? And one of the most common things is this gaslighting of business owners where they're like, oh no, dude, that's not my sales team. My sales team would never fucking do that. We fucking love money. We follow up with everybody. And you go look and they do fuck all for follow up. The only people they actually follow up with are a couple days after their scheduled call just occurred. They're not even following up with people who scheduled calls and didn't show up. You know, and okay, anyway, I can go on a whole rant about that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put attention back on this. Okay, so my point I'm trying to make is very simple, okay? Very simple, my friend. You're likely actually making all your money from the people who scheduled calls through the call funnel, and you're likely making very little to potentially literally no money at all on people who apply and did not schedule, unless you got a baller setter team or a team of actual salespeople that fucking love money and literally do it. okay? Most do not. You might be in the most category. That'd be my bet. Now, to be clear, even worse than that is a huge artificially inflated bottleneck that you have in your funnel that's driving up your cost per call and driving down your ROAS is if you have an opt-in on your call funnel, okay? I want to stress this with the utmost importance. Opt-ins are the devil, okay? They are the man himself. They are no good. This is one of the largest, horrendously violent, down bad things that you could do inside of a call funnel, okay? The only justification for it is if you have math that backs up that people who opt in and don't schedule later buy. If you have that math, it is not the devil, it is angelic by comparison, okay? But if you have not done that fucking math, go pause this video, do the math, and look at it for yourself. Because when you do the math on what that opt-in does for driving down your ROAS and driving up your cost per call, you'll see it for yourself. You'll see the devil's in the details right there. You'll look at the math and you'll be like, holy shit, I have been, what's the word? Possessed, yes. You've been possessed by the devil himself if you have that opt-in and are trying to justify it without doing the math. Because when you do the math, you'll see it. You'll be like, my God, okay? And you'll remove that fucking opt-in. So anyway, hope this video helps you. There is a tremendous amount of additional things that we talk about, but we only talk about them to the people who pay us. You got more than enough here for free. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Go check out some of the other videos. And of course, check those links down in the description when you are ready for the big dog stuff, the real juice, the true sauce. And either way, whether you do or don't, go get rich. Talk soon.